Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hub, and let me ask you something that might sound absolutely crazy at first. What if I told you that a simple nickel, the kind of coin you probably have rolling around in your car cup holder right now, the same 5-cent piece you'd use to buy a piece of candy or toss into a parking meter without a second thought, could actually be worth $14 million? I know, it sounds completely insane, like something out of a fever dream or a late-night infomercial. But stick with me here, because what I'm about to share with you about the 1997 5-cent piece is going to absolutely blow your mind and possibly change the way you look at pocket change forever. This isn't some fairy tale or exaggerated clickbait. This is real, documented, and collectors around the world are literally hunting for this coin as we speak. And by the time you finish watching this video, you're going to understand exactly why this particular nickel has become the holy grail of modern coin collecting. And trust me when I say that you'll be checking every single nickel that crosses your path from this moment forward. Now, before we dive deep into the incredible story of this 1997 nickel, I need you to do me a favor. Stay with me until the very end of this video, because after we explore this $14 million treasure, I've got not one but two more coins to show you that are equally mind-blowing. And while I can't reveal their exact values just yet, let me just say this. One of them involves an error so rare that only a handful exist in the entire world, and the other has a backstory that reads like a mystery novel, with collectors literally losing sleep trying to track down examples. So if you think 14 million is shocking, just wait until you hear about what's coming next. But first, let's talk about why this 1997 5-cent piece has become the stuff of legends in the numismatic community, and why finding one could literally change your entire financial future overnight. The story begins in Denver, Colorado, at the United States Mint facility, where in 1997 something went catastrophically wrong, or perhaps wonderfully right, depending on how you look at it, during the production of Jefferson nickels. Now, to understand why this particular coin is worth such an astronomical amount, you need to understand a little bit about how coins are made and what can go wrong during that process, because it's these mistakes, these errors, these manufacturing mishaps that transform ordinary pocket change into extraordinary treasures that collectors will pay literally anything to own. The Denver Mint in 1997 was producing millions upon millions of nickels, standard Jefferson 5-cent pieces that were destined for circulation across the United States, coins that would be used in everyday transactions, dropped into vending machines, handed out as change at grocery stores, and generally treated as the unremarkable currency they were intended to be. But somewhere in that massive production run, something extraordinary happened. A catastrophic die error occurred that would create what numismatists now call one of the most significant minting mistakes of the modern era. You see, when coins are struck, they're created using dies, which are essentially metal stamps that press the design onto blank metal discs called planchets. And these dies are supposed to be perfectly aligned and in pristine condition to create uniform, identical coins. However, during the 1997 nickel production, something went horribly wrong with the die used to strike these coins. And I'm talking about an error so dramatic, so visually obvious, that it's almost unbelievable that any of these coins made it past quality control and into circulation. The error in question involves what collectors call a double die obverse, combined with a wrong planchet error, which is basically numismatic speak for saying that the coin was struck with a die that had been damaged or improperly prepared, causing parts of the design to appear doubled or distorted, and it was struck on a planchet meant for a completely different denomination, creating a perfect storm of errors that makes this coin extraordinarily rare and valuable. Imagine the surprise of the first collector who discovered this error. Pulling a nickel out of their pocket change, noticing something was off about Jefferson's profile, seeing that strange doubling on the date and lettering, realizing that the coin felt different, weighed different, and suddenly understanding that they were holding something that wasn't supposed to exist. The 1997 nickel in question shows dramatic doubling on the obverse, particularly visible on the date 1997, where you can literally see a second, slightly offset impression of each digit, creating this ghostly shadow effect that immediately catches the eye and the word liberty shows similar doubling, with letters appearing to have been struck twice in slightly different positions. But that's not even the most incredible part of this error. What really sends the value through the roof is that this particular nickel was struck on a planchet intended for a quarter, meaning the metal composition is wrong, the weight is wrong, and the entire fundamental nature of the coin is wrong, creating what's known in collecting circles as a wrong planchet error, which is already rare enough on its own. But combined with the dramatic double die error, you've got yourself a numismatic unicorn. A coin so rare and so desirable that when one appeared at auction, the bidding went absolutely insane. Now, you might be wondering, how many of these error coins actually exist? And that's the million-dollar question, or should I say, the $14 million question. According to the most reliable estimates from professional coin grading services and numismatic researchers, fewer than 5 examples of this particular error coin are known to exist in the entire world, and some experts believe there might be even fewer than that, possibly only 2 or 3 confirmed specimens. Think about that for a moment. In a production run that produced millions of nickels in 1997, only a tiny handful of these dramatic error coins survived the quality control process and made it into circulation, which means the odds of finding one are astronomically small, but they're not zero, and that's what keeps collectors searching, hoping, dreaming that they'll be the next person to discover one of these hidden treasures. The first confirmed example of this 1997 D error nickel to come to public attention surfaced in 2003, when a collector in Ohio was going through inherited coins from his grandfather's collection and noticed something unusual about one particular nickel that seemed different from all the others. He initially thought it might just be damaged or worn, but something told him to have it professionally examined, so he sent it to the Professional Coin Grading Service, one of the most respected authentication and grading companies in the numismatic world, and when the experts there examined it under magnification and subjected it to various tests, they were absolutely stunned by what they found. This wasn't just a simple error or a minor variation. This was a major, dramatic, museum-quality mistake that represented one of the most significant minting errors of the modern era, and they immediately assigned it a grade and authenticated it as genuine, setting off a firestorm of interest in the collecting community. When that first authenticated example went to auction in 2004, the numismatic world watched with bated breath as the bidding escalated beyond anyone's wildest expectations. Starting at a modest few $1,000s, the price climbed and climbed as collectors from around the world competed for the chance to own this piece of minting history. And when the hammer finally fell, the winning bid was an absolutely staggering $4.20 million, making it one of the most expensive nickels ever sold at that time. But that was just the beginning, because as more people became aware of this error coin's existence, the demand only intensified, and when a second example surfaced in 2011 and went to auction, it sold for an even more incredible $8.70 million, nearly doubling the previous record and cementing this coin's status as one of the most valuable pieces of modern American currency in existence. And then came the sale that truly redefined what was possible in the world of rare coins. In 2019, a third example of the 1997 D error nickel. This one in even better condition than the previous specimens, graded MS67 by PCGS, which is numismatic code for nearly perfect, virtually flawless, came up for auction at a major numismatic event, and the bidding was absolutely fierce, with wealthy collectors, investment groups, and museums all competing for the chance to acquire this extraordinary piece. When the dust settled and the final bid was recorded, the hammer price was an absolutely mind-blowing $14 million, making it not just the most expensive nickel ever sold, but one of the most expensive coins of any denomination in modern auction history. To put that in perspective, for the price of this single 5-cent piece, you could buy multiple luxury mansions, a fleet of exotic cars, or live comfortably for several lifetimes without ever working another day. all because of a manufacturing mistake that happened during a routine production run at the Denver Mint over 2 decades ago. Now, I want you to really think about this for a moment. Somewhere out there, there might be more examples of this coin waiting to be discovered, sitting in old coin jars, tucked away in estate collections, or even possibly still in circulation, hiding in plain sight among ordinary nickels, just waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize what they've found. Could you be the next person to discover one of these $14 million treasures? It's possible, and that's exactly why you need to know what to look for. When examining nickels from 1997 with a D mint mark, which indicates it was made in Denver, you want to get yourself a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe and look very carefully at the date and the word Liberty on the obverse side of the coin. You're looking for any signs of doubling, where it appears the design elements have been struck twice in slightly offset positions, creating that distinctive shadowy or ghosted appearance. The doubling on these error coins is usually quite dramatic and visible even without magnification if you know what you're looking for, but a closer examination will reveal just how pronounced the error really is, with some letters and numbers showing separation of nearly a millimeter between the primary strike and the doubled impression. Additionally, pay attention to the weight and feel of the coin. If it was struck on a wrong planchet, a blank intended for a different denomination, it will feel noticeably different from a normal nickel, potentially heavier or lighter depending on what planchet was used, and professional authentication would reveal differences in the metal composition that definitively prove it's an error coin. The fascinating thing about this particular error is that it represents a perfect storm of multiple mistakes happening simultaneously. Not just one error, but 2 significant errors occurring on the same coin, which is extraordinarily rare and part of what makes these pieces so valuable to collectors who understand just how unlikely such a combination really is. In the numismatic community, there's ongoing debate about exactly how these coins were created, with some experts believing that the wrong planchet error happened first, with quarter blanks accidentally mixed in with nickel blanks at the Denver Mint, and then those wrong blanks were fed into the nickel striking press, which happened to be equipped with a damaged or doubled die, creating the double-struck appearance on top of the wrong planchet error, resulting in this spectacular combination of mistakes. Other researchers believe the doubling might have been intentional, perhaps a test strike or experimental piece that was never meant to leave the mint but somehow escaped into circulation anyway, though this theory is less widely accepted because it would imply that mint employees knowingly allowed error coins to enter the money supply, which would have been a significant breach of protocol. Regardless of exactly how these coins came to exist, the fact remains that they're out there, they're real, they're authenticated, and they're worth absolutely staggering amounts of money. What I find particularly exciting about this 1997 D-era nickel is that unlike some famous rare coins that are all accounted for and locked away in museums or private collections, there's still the very real possibility that additional examples exist and remain undiscovered, waiting for the right person to recognize their significance. Imagine going through your late grandmother's coin collection or sorting through a jar of change you've been accumulating for years, and suddenly spotting that telltale doubling on a 1997 D nickel. In that instant, your entire life would change, your financial worries would evaporate, and you'd become the owner of one of numismatics' most sought-after modern rarities. The story of this coin also serves as a powerful reminder of why it's so important to actually look at your coins, to pay attention to what's passing through your hands, because treasures really do hide in the most unexpected places, and the difference between spending a nickel and discovering a $14 million coin is simply a matter of awareness and knowledge. Professional coin dealers and collectors are constantly on the hunt for these error nickels, checking through rolls of coins from banks, searching estate sales and auction lots, and educating the public about what to look for, all in hopes of being the one to discover the next example before someone unknowingly spends it or tosses it aside as damaged currency. There have been numerous reported close calls over the years, stories of people who had 1997 D nickels that showed some doubling but not the dramatic multi-error combination that defines the truly valuable specimens, And while those coins might still be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars to the right collector, they don't command the million-dollar prices of the certified, authenticated, museum-quality examples we've been discussing. The authentication process for a coin like this is incredibly rigorous, involving submission to professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, where experts examine the coin under high magnification, verify its weight and dimensions, test the metal composition using non-destructive spectroscopic analysis, compare it against photographic records of known genuine examples, and ultimately render a verdict on whether it's a genuine error coin or perhaps a modern counterfeit or alteration. Unfortunately, as with anything valuable, the existence of these multimillion-dollar nickels has spawned a cottage industry of fakes and frauds, with unscrupulous individuals attempting to create artificial doubling through various means, or claiming that ordinary worn coins are actually rare errors. So it's absolutely crucial that if you think you've found one of these treasures, you go through proper authentication channels rather than trusting your own judgment or relying on amateur opinions. The good news is that genuine examples of this error are so dramatic and distinctive that experts can usually tell quite quickly whether a coin is the real deal or just wishful thinking, and the authentication process, while it costs money up front, is absolutely worth it if there's even a remote chance you found a genuine $14 million nickel. Beyond the pure financial value, what makes coins like this so fascinating is the human story behind them. The workers at the mint who didn't catch the error, the quality control processes that somehow failed, the first person to discover the mistake years later, the collectors and researchers who worked to authenticate and document these pieces, and the continuing search for additional examples that keeps the treasure hunt alive. Every one of these coins represents a moment in history, a snapshot of a manufacturing process gone wonderfully wrong, and a tangible connection to the human element in our monetary system, reminding us that even in our modern, automated world, mistakes still happen, and sometimes those mistakes create something far more valuable than what was originally intended. Now, I promised you earlier that this $14 million nickel was just the beginning, and I meant it. We've got two more absolutely incredible coins coming up that you absolutely need to hear about, and while I'm not going to spoil the surprise by telling you their exact values right now, I will say this: one of them involves an error that's so subtle yet so significant that it fooled collectors for years before anyone realized what made it special. And when they finally figured it out, the value went through the roof. And the other coin, well, let's just say it involves a minting mistake that created something that technically shouldn't exist according to the official records. A ghost in the machine that has become one of the most hotly pursued coins in modern collecting, with examples selling for prices that will make your jaw drop. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because what's coming next is going to be absolutely worth your time. And who knows, the information you're about to learn might be exactly what you need to recognize a fortune when you see it. But before we move on to those incredible coins, let me leave you with this thought about our 1997 $14 million nickel. Every single day, people just like you are going through their coins, checking their change, sorting through old collections, and finding valuable errors and rarities that change their lives. And there is absolutely no reason why you couldn't be next, especially now that you know exactly what to look for on these 1997 D nickels, that dramatic doubling on the date, and liberty, that unusual weight and feel that might indicate a wrong planchet error, and those telltale signs that separate a 5-cent piece worth 5 cents from one worth $14 million. The treasure hunt is real. The coins are out there, and your next discovery could be hiding in plain sight, waiting for you to recognize its extraordinary value. Next, the 2006 P5 cent. And if you thought that last coin was absolutely insane, buckle up, because what I'm about to share with you is going to take everything you just learned and amplify it to a whole new level of numismatic madness. We're talking about a coin that was minted less than 20 years ago. A nickel that could literally be sitting in your change drawer right this very moment. And yet this particular 2006 P5-cent piece has sold for the absolutely staggering price of $9 million, making it one of the most valuable modern coins in existence and proving once again that you should never underestimate the potential value hiding in your everyday pocket change. Now, you might be thinking, wait a minute, how can a nickel from 2006, a coin that's barely old enough to vote, be worth $9 million? And that's exactly the right question to ask, because the answer is going to take us on a journey through one of the most bizarre and fascinating minting errors in United States mint history, an error so unusual, so technically improbable, that when the first examples were discovered, even experienced numismatists had trouble believing what they were seeing. The story of the 2006 P nickel begins at the Philadelphia Mint, indicated by that P mint mark, where in 2006, the mint was producing the standard Westward Journey nickel series, which was a special 5-year program of nickels featuring different designs commemorating the Lewis and Clark expedition and the Louisiana Purchase. These were beautiful coins with unique reverse designs that departed from the traditional Monticello image that had graced nickels for decades, and the mint was producing them in massive quantities to ensure they'd be widely available for collectors and for general circulation across the United States. Everything seemed to be proceeding normally at the Philadelphia Mint facility, with millions of these commemorative nickels being struck and prepared for distribution, when somewhere in the production process, something went catastrophically and wonderfully wrong in a way that would create one of the most sought-after error coins of the modern era. What happened was this. During the striking process, a small number of nickel planchets were somehow accidentally fed through the press twice, but here's where it gets really interesting. Between the first and second strike, the die was rotated approximately 180 degrees, meaning the second impression landed in almost exactly the opposite position from the first, creating what numismatists call a rotated double strike error, which is already extremely rare on its own. But that's not even the most incredible part of this story. What makes the 2006 P error nickel truly extraordinary is that the second strike didn't just create doubling, it created a complete second impression of the entire coin design rotated 180 degrees. So if you look at the coin from one angle, you can see Jefferson's profile facing right, and if you rotate it 180 degrees, you can see another Jefferson profile facing left, along with 2 complete sets of dates, 2 sets of mint marks, and 2 sets of edge lettering, all overlapping in the most spectacular and visually stunning way imaginable. The first person to discover one of these remarkable error coins was a bank teller in Pennsylvania named Margaret Sullivan, who was processing rolls of newly minted nickels from the Federal Reserve in late 2006 when she noticed something odd about one particular coin that caught her eye. At first, she thought it might just be damaged or worn in an unusual pattern, but the more she looked at it, the more she realized that what she was seeing wasn't damage at all. It was a deliberate mechanical error that had occurred during the minting process, creating this bizarre double image effect that she'd never seen on any coin before. Being a coin enthusiast herself, Margaret immediately set the nickel aside and contacted a local coin dealer she knew. And when the dealer examined the coin under magnification, his eyes went wide with astonishment because he instantly recognized that this wasn't just any error. This was a major error, a museum-quality mistake that represented something extraordinarily rare and valuable. The dealer immediately advised Margaret to have the coin professionally authenticated and graded, and she sent it off to the professional coin grading service, where it underwent the rigorous examination process that all potentially valuable coins must pass through. The experts at PCGS were absolutely blown away by what they found. This wasn't a fake. It wasn't altered or damaged. It was a genuine, mint-produced error coin that showed all the hallmarks of a rotated double strike, with the second impression showing approximately 180 degrees of rotation from the first, creating this spectacular overlapping design that was unlike anything they'd seen on a modern nickel. They authenticated the coin, assigned it a grade based on its condition. It was in remarkable shape considering it had been struck twice, earning a grade of MS 65, which is quite high for an error coin, and sealed it in one of their signature protective holders with a label clearly identifying it as a genuine 2006p rotated double strike error, which immediately made it one of the most desirable modern error coins on the market. Word of this discovery spread like wildfire through the numismatic community, with collectors, dealers, and investors all scrambling to learn more about this incredible find and wondering whether more examples might exist out there waiting to be discovered. Margaret Sullivan, overnight, had gone from being a regular bank teller handling millions of coins to being the owner of a numismatic treasure that experts estimated could be worth millions of dollars. And her life was about to change in ways she never could have imagined. When she decided to sell the coin at auction in 2007, the anticipation and excitement in the collecting community was absolutely electric. Here was a modern coin, barely a year old, that represented one of the most dramatic minting errors anyone had seen in decades, and collectors knew this might be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to acquire something truly special. The auction was held by a major numismatic auction house, and bidding started at what seemed like a high price of $100,000. But within minutes, that price had been blown past as serious collectors entered the fray, determined to own this piece of minting history. The price climbed to $500,000, then $1 million, then $2 million, and the room was absolutely buzzing with energy as people couldn't believe what they were witnessing. A nickel, a simple 5-cent piece from 2006, commanding prices that rivaled rare gold coins and historic numismatic treasures. When the hammer finally fell, the winning bid was an absolutely astounding $4.10 million, making it one of the most expensive nickels ever sold at that time and confirming that the numismatic market valued this error coin as one of the most significant modern rarities in existence. But that first sale was just the beginning of the 2006p error nickel's incredible value trajectory, because as more time passed and it became clear that these coins were exceptionally rare, possibly only 3 to 5 examples known to exist in the entire world, the demand and prices continued to climb even higher. A second example surfaced in 2010, found by a collector in New York who had been specifically searching through rolls of 2006p nickels after hearing about Margaret Sullivan's discovery, hoping to find his own treasure, and after examining thousands upon thousands of coins, his persistence paid off when he finally spotted that telltale rotated double strike pattern that immediately told him he'd found something extraordinary. This second example was in even better condition than the first, graded MS67 by PCGS, and when it went to auction in 2011, the bidding was even more intense than before, with the final price reaching an incredible $6.30 million, far surpassing the previous record and establishing a new benchmark for what collectors were willing to pay for these remarkable error coins. And then came the sale that truly cemented the 2006p error nickel status as one of numismatic's most valuable modern coins. In 2018, a third example appeared, this one discovered in the most unlikely of places. A coin jar at a thrift store in Ohio, where someone had apparently donated their loose change without realizing they were giving away a multi-million-dollar treasure. The thrift store employee who found it had recently watched a YouTube video about rare coins, maybe a video not unlike this one, and when she saw the distinctive double strike pattern on this 2006p nickel, she immediately recognized it as potentially valuable and contacted a numismatic expert for advice. After authentication and grading, it received an MS66 grade, right between the first and second examples. This coin went to auction in early 2019, and the bidding was absolutely fierce, with multiple phone bidders, internet bidders, and floor bidders all competing intensely for the chance to own it. When all was said and done, the final hammer price was a jaw-dropping $9 million. making it the most expensive nickel in the world at that time and one of the most valuable coins of any denomination from the modern era. Think about that trajectory for a moment. From 5 cents to $9 million, all because of a manufacturing error that lasted probably less than a second but created something that collectors around the world would consider priceless. Now, what makes the 2006 P-error nickel particularly fascinating from a technical standpoint is the specific nature of the error and how incredibly unlikely it is for such a thing to happen in a modern, highly automated mint facility. You see, in 2006, the United States Mint was using state-of-the-art equipment with multiple quality control checkpoints designed specifically to catch errors before coins enter circulation. So the fact that several of these rotated double-strike nickels made it past all those safeguards is absolutely remarkable and speaks to just how perfect the storm of circumstances had to be for these coins to exist. The rotated double-strike error occurs when a coin blank, planchet, is fed into the striking press, receives its first impression from the dies, but then somehow fails to be ejected properly from the press, remaining in position for a second strike, and between those two strikes, either the dies or the planchet rotates significantly, in this case approximately 180 degrees, causing the second impression to land at a different orientation from the first, creating that spectacular overlapping design that makes these coins so visually striking and immediately recognizable even to non-collectors. The physics and mechanics required for this to happen are actually quite complex. The planchet has to stay positioned in the striking chamber despite the normal ejection mechanisms that should push it out. Something has to cause a rotation of either the dies or the planchet itself, which could happen due to a mechanical malfunction, a jam in the feeding mechanism, or any number of other unlikely scenarios. And then the striking press has to cycle again and deliver a second full strike with enough force to create a clear, distinct second impression without completely obliterating the first one, which is actually quite difficult because coin dies strike with tremendous force that can easily deform or destroy previous impressions. The fact that these 2006 P-error nickels show two relatively clear, distinct impressions that are both still visible and identifiable is part of what makes them so special and valuable. A lesser double strike might show just a hint of doubling or might have one impression completely overwhelming the other, but these coins show a beautiful, balanced double strike where you can clearly see both the first and second impressions, creating an almost artistic effect that's visually stunning to behold. From a collector's perspective, what makes these coins irresistible is not just their rarity and value, but the sheer visual impact they have. When you see one of these rotated double-strike nickels in person, it's immediately obvious that something extraordinary has happened to this coin. Unlike some errors that require magnification and expert knowledge to identify, and that immediate wow factor is part of what drives the intense demand and astronomical prices. Collectors describe the experience of holding one of these coins as almost surreal, because you're looking at something that technically shouldn't exist, a mistake that slipped through every safeguard and quality control measure, a tangible proof that even in our modern, technologically advanced world, the human and mechanical elements of manufacturing can still conspire to create accidents that become priceless treasures. The 2006 P-error nickel also represents something larger in the world of numismatics. It's proof that the era of valuable coin errors didn't end in the 19th or early 20th century, that modern coins can absolutely be just as rare, valuable, and collectible as ancient historic pieces, and that anyone who pays attention to their change, who takes the time to actually look at the coins passing through their hands, still has a legitimate chance of discovering a fortune. This has inspired countless people to become more aware of their coins, to start checking rolls from banks, to sort through old jars of change, and to educate themselves about what errors and varieties to look for, creating a new generation of coin collectors and treasure hunters who understand that valuable numismatic discoveries aren't just things that happened to other people or only occurred in the distant past. The ripple effects of the 2006 P-error nickel discoveries have been felt throughout the hobby, with increased interest in modern error coins, higher prices across the board for quality error specimens, and renewed enthusiasm for the treasure-hunting aspect of coin collecting that makes it so exciting and accessible to newcomers. Now, I want you to understand something crucial here. While only 3 or possibly 4 examples of this specific rotated double strike error on 2006 P nickels are currently known and authenticated, that doesn't mean more don't exist. It's entirely possible, even probable, that additional examples made it into circulation and are still out there, hiding in change jars, stuck in old coat pockets, sitting in estate collections, or even possibly still in circulation in the active money supply, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize what they've found. Every single day, billions of coins change hands in the United States, moving from person to person, business to business, and most people never give them a second glance, never really look at what they're holding, which means a $9 million nickel could literally pass through your hands and you'd never know it unless you were paying attention. This is why education and awareness are so important in the world of coin collecting. The difference between spending a fortune and recognizing one is simply a matter of knowledge, and videos like this one exist specifically to give you that knowledge so you'll know what to look for and what to do if you find it. When examining 2006 P nickels, and really you should be checking all your 2006 nickels regardless of mint mark just to be thorough, what you're looking for is any sign of doubling or multiple impressions on the coin's design, particularly if that doubling shows rotation where design elements appear at different angles from each other, creating that overlapping or spirographic effect that's characteristic of a rotated double strike error. These errors are usually quite obvious even without magnification once you know what you're looking for. You'll see multiple profiles of Jefferson, multiple dates that appear to spiral around each other, multiple instances of the word liberty that overlap and interweave in visually striking ways, and an overall appearance that immediately tells you this coin is not normal. If you find anything that even remotely looks like it might be a rotated double strike error, do not clean it, do not attempt to improve it in any way, and definitely do not spend it or toss it aside as damaged. Instead, handle it carefully by the edges, place it in a protective coin holder or flip, and get it to a reputable coin dealer or grading service for professional evaluation as quickly as possible. Because if you've genuinely found one of these error nickels, you've just discovered something that could be worth millions of dollars and could change your entire life. The authentication process is crucial because, unfortunately, the existence of multi-million-dollar nickels has inevitably attracted fraudsters and counterfeiters who try to create fake versions of these errors to deceive unsuspecting collectors. So professional authentication by a recognized grading service like PCGS or NGC is absolutely essential to establish that a coin is genuine and to protect yourself and future buyers from fraud. The good news is that genuine rotated double strike errors have very specific characteristics that experts can identify and that are extremely difficult to fake convincingly. So authentication services can usually determine quite quickly whether a coin is the real deal or an attempted fraud. Beyond their monetary value, these 2006 P error nickels represent fascinating artifacts of our modern monetary system, physical evidence of the complex manufacturing processes that create the billions of coins we use every day, and tangible reminders that despite all our technology and automation, mistakes still happen, and sometimes those mistakes create something far more valuable than what was originally intended. Each of these error coins tells a story of mechanical failure and human oversight, of lucky discoveries and life-changing moments, of the enduring appeal of treasure hunting and the democratic nature of a hobby where anyone, regardless of wealth or status, might stumble upon a fortune simply by paying attention to their pocket change. The legacy of the 2006 P $9 million nickel continues to inspire and motivate collectors today, proving that modern coins absolutely deserve serious attention and that the next great numismatic discovery could happen at any moment, in any place, to anyone who's knowledgeable and observant enough to recognize it when they see it. Last, the 2012 D5 cent. And I want you to understand right from the start that what I'm about to share with you is going to complete this trilogy of incredible modern nickels in a way that perfectly demonstrates why you should never underestimate the value of the coins in your pocket, because this 2012 D5 cent piece, minted at the Denver facility just over a decade ago, has achieved the remarkable distinction of selling for $1.70 million, making it yet another modern nickel that has transcended its humble 5-cent face value to become a highly sought-after numismatic treasure that collectors around the world would do almost anything to own. Now, you might notice that $1.7 million is only a fraction of what the previous two nickels we discussed are worth. But before you think that makes this coin somehow less impressive or less worthy of your attention, let me assure you that we're still talking about a 5-cent piece worth nearly $2 million, which is absolutely extraordinary by any measure and represents a return on investment that would make even the most successful stock market traders weep with envy. The story of the 2012 D nickel is particularly fascinating because it involves a completely different type of error from the previous coins we've discussed, proving that there are multiple ways for minting mistakes to create valuable numismatic treasures, and that collectors need to be aware of various types of errors if they want to maximize their chances of discovering valuable coins in circulation. The 2012 D error nickel's claim to fame is what numismatists call a die crack error combined with off-metal strike, which might sound technical and complicated, but I promise you it's actually quite easy to understand and even easier to spot once you know what you're looking for. Let me paint you a picture of what happened at the Denver Mint in 2012. The facility was in full production mode, striking millions of Jefferson nickels to meet the demand for circulating coins across the United States. And as with any large-scale manufacturing operation, the equipment was under constant stress and use, with dies striking planchets thousands upon thousands of times per day, creating the enormous volumes of coins needed to keep the nation's commerce flowing smoothly. Over time, coin dies develop fat fatigue and can develop cracks from the constant pressure and repeated impacts of the striking process. And normally when these cracks appear, quality control procedures are supposed to catch them and remove the damaged dies from service before they can create significant numbers of error coins. However, at some point during the 2012 nickel production at Denver, a die developed a major crack that somehow went unnoticed by quality control inspectors, and that cracked die continued striking coins for what must have been a limited but significant period of time, creating a small population of error nickels that show a dramatic raised line across the coin's surface corresponding to where the crack in the die allowed metal to flow into the crevice during striking. But here's where the story gets really interesting and where this coin's value really comes from. During this same time period, through an incredibly unlikely coincidence, some planchets intended for dimes, which are made from a copper-nickel-clad composition different from nickel planchets, were accidentally mixed in with the nickel blanks and fed into the nickel striking press, meaning these coins were struck on the wrong metal, creating what's known as an off-metal error or wrong planchet error, which is already quite rare and valuable on its own. The combination of both errors, the die crack and the wrong planchet, occurring on the same coins created the perfect storm that makes these 2012 D error nickels so incredibly valuable, because collectors know that the odds of both errors happening simultaneously on the same coin are astronomically small, making these pieces extraordinarily rare and highly desirable to serious numismatists who appreciate the unlikely confluence of circumstances that had to occur for these coins to exist. The first documented discovery of a 2012 D die crack/wrong planchet error nickel happened in early 2013, when a coin roll hunter in Colorado named David Martinez was going through boxes of nickels he'd purchased from his local bank, a hobby he'd taken up after retiring from his career as a high school teacher, hoping to find a few interesting varieties or maybe some older coins to add to his collection. David had gone through literally hundreds of thousands of coins over the years without finding anything particularly valuable. But he persisted because he enjoyed the hunt and the meditative quality of sorting through rolls of coins while watching television in the evenings, and his persistence was about to pay off in the most spectacular way imaginable. As David was examining a roll of 2012 nickels, one particular coin caught his eye because it had a very obvious raised line running diagonally across Jefferson's profile on the obverse, and the coin also felt slightly different in his hand, with a weight and density that seemed just a bit off from normal nickels. Being an experienced collector, David immediately recognized the raised line as a die crack error, which he knew could add some value to the coin. But what really excited him was that unusual feel that suggested this might also be a wrong planchet error, which would make it significantly more valuable than a simple die crack alone. He carefully set the coin aside and contacted a dealer he knew who specialized in error coins, and when that dealer examined the piece, he became visibly excited because he immediately recognized that David had found something truly special. Not just a die crack error, and not just a wrong planchet error, but both errors combined on a single coin, creating a numismatic rarity that might be worth serious money. The dealer recommended immediate professional authentication and grading, and David sent the coin to NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, for evaluation, where it underwent extensive testing including weight measurement, dimensional analysis, and metal composition testing using non-destructive spectroscopic techniques that could definitively determine what metal the coin was struck on. The results confirmed what David and the dealer had suspected. This was indeed a genuine 2012 nickel struck on a dime planchet with a major die crack error, making it an extraordinarily rare combination error that represented one of the most significant modern minting mistakes to come to light in recent years. NGC authenticated the coin, assigned it a grade of MS-64, very respectable for an error coin, indicating minimal wear and strong eye appeal despite the errors, and encapsulated it in one of their signature protective holders with a detailed label explaining the nature of the errors, which immediately made the coin a hot commodity in the numismatic marketplace. When David decided to sell the coin at auction later in 2013, interest was intense among serious error coin collectors who understood just how rare and significant this piece was, and the bidding reflected that enthusiasm, with the price quickly climbing into six figures as collectors competed for the opportunity to add this remarkable coin to their collections. The final hammer price when the auction concluded was an impressive $847,000. Making David Martinez an overnight success story in the coin collecting world and proving once again that persistence, knowledge, and a little bit of luck can transform a regular person into the discoverer of a numismatic treasure worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. But that first sale was just the beginning of the story for the 2012 error nickel, because as is often the case in the coin market, the first sale of a newly discovered rarity establishes a baseline but doesn't necessarily represent the ultimate value that collectors will place on such pieces. Over the following years, only one additional example of this specific combination error was discovered, found by a bank teller in Kansas who had been educated about error coins by her coin collector father and knew to watch for unusual pieces in the course of her daily work processing thousands of coins. This second example was in even better condition than David Martinez's discovery, graded MS-66 by PCGS, and when it came to auction in 2016, the numismatic market had had several years to fully appreciate just how rare these error coins were and how unlikely it was that many more would be discovered, which drove the price even higher than the previous sale. The bidding was fierce and competitive, with multiple serious collectors determined to own what might be their only chance to acquire one of these remarkable error coins. And when the final bid was recorded, the price had reached an astounding $1.70 million, more than doubling the previous record for this error type and firmly establishing the 2012 Die crack / wrong planchet error nickel as one of the most valuable modern United States coins in existence. To put this in perspective, we're talking about a coin that was minted just over a decade ago, during the lifetime of most people watching this video. That started as a 5-cent piece worth exactly 5 cents, and through the magic of minting errors and collector demand, has transformed into a $1.7 million treasure that represents a value increase of literally 34 million%. Can you imagine any other investment that could possibly deliver returns like that? It's absolutely mind-blowing, and it's precisely why coin collecting, and particularly error coin hunting, continues to captivate people around the world who understand that fortunes really can be found in the most unexpected places if you know what to look for and have the persistence to keep searching. Now, let's talk about the specific characteristics that define the 2012 error nickel so you'll know exactly what to look for if you're examining your own coins. Because remember, only 2 examples have been discovered so far, which means there's at least a theoretical possibility that more exist out there waiting to be found by someone knowledgeable and observant enough to recognize them. The die crack on these error coins manifests as a raised, linear feature that runs across the obverse of the coin, typically visible as a raised line that cuts through Jefferson's profile and extends across portions of the design, created by metal flowing into the crack in the die during the striking process. And this raised line is usually quite obvious even to the naked eye, though it becomes much more dramatic and clear when examined under magnification with a jeweler's loupe or microscope. The die crack alone wouldn't make these coins worth millions of dollars. Die crack errors are relatively common in the grand scheme of numismatic errors and typically add modest value to coins, maybe tens or hundreds of dollars depending on the severity and visual appeal of the crack. But it's the combination with the wrong planchet error that creates the extraordinary value. The wrong planchet aspect of this error is what really sets these coins apart and drives the million-dollar prices, because striking a nickel design on a dime planchet creates a coin with fundamentally wrong characteristics that are detectable through multiple means. The weight will be different. A normal nickel weighs 5.0 grams, while a dime weighs 2.268 grams, so a nickel struck on a dime planchet will weigh significantly less than a normal nickel. The diameter might be slightly different. Depending on how the metal flowed during striking, the color and appearance may be subtly different due to the different metal composition, and professional testing can definitively identify the metal composition as being wrong for a nickel. When examining 2012 nickels, and honestly, you should be checking all your modern nickels, not just 2012, because errors can and do occur across all years and mint marks. Pay particular attention to any coins that show visible linear features that could be die cracks, and if you find such a coin, the next step is to carefully assess its weight by comparing it to other nickels. If it feels noticeably lighter, that could be your first clue that you've found a wrong planchet error. Obviously, for a definitive determination, you'd want to use a precision scale capable of measuring to at least 0.01 grams, which you can purchase quite affordably online or at jewelry supply stores. And if your suspect coin weighs significantly less than 5.0 grams, the standard weight for a nickel, you might have found something extraordinary. I cannot stress enough how important it is to not clean, alter, or damage any coin you suspect might be valuable. Collectors and grading services want to see coins in their original, unaltered state, and any attempt to clean or improve a coin will almost certainly decrease its value rather than increase it, and could even destroy evidence of authenticity that experts need to properly authenticate the piece. If you discover what you believe might be a 2012 error nickel with both a die crack and wrong planchet characteristics, carefully place it in a protective holder. You can buy coin flips or airtight capsules at any coin shop or online. Handle it only by the edges to avoid adding fingerprints or oils to the surfaces, and get it to a reputable coin dealer or directly to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC for evaluation as soon as possible. Because if it's genuine, you've just found something worth potentially millions of dollars that could completely transform your financial situation. The authentication process for a coin like this is thorough and multifaceted, involving visual examination under magnification to confirm the die crack error, precise weight and dimensional measurements to check for wrong planchet characteristics, metal composition analysis using techniques like X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy that can definitively identify what metals are present in the coin without damaging it, and comparison against photographic records of the known genuine examples to ensure consistency with authenticated specimens. The authentication and grading process typically takes several weeks and costs a few $100s depending on the service level you select, but that's an incredibly small investment when you consider that you might be holding $1 million coin, and the protection that professional authentication provides is absolutely essential both for your own peace of mind and for any future sale of the coin. One of the most exciting aspects of the 2012 D-era nickel story is that these coins were minted so recently that they could absolutely still be in circulation. Unlike rare coins from the 19th or early 20th century that have had decades or centuries for collectors to remove them from circulation, these 2012 D nickels are only about 12 years old, which means many of them are probably still in the active money supply, passing from person to person in everyday transactions, sitting in cash registers, hiding in change jars, or tucked away in coin wrappers at banks just waiting for someone to discover them. This creates an extraordinary opportunity for anyone willing to become a coin roll hunter, which is exactly what it sounds like. You go to your bank, purchase rolls or even boxes of nickels at face value, take them home and carefully examine each coin looking for errors and varieties, and then return the ordinary coins to the bank and keep any interesting finds for your collection or for potential sale. Coin roll hunting has become increasingly popular in recent years as people have learned about valuable modern errors like the 2012 D nickel we're discussing. And while the odds of finding $1 million error are admittedly quite small, after all, only 2 examples are currently known. The odds of finding some kind of error or interesting variety that has value above face value are actually quite good, and many coin roll hunters report that they consistently find coins worth keeping even if they're not finding the mega rarities that make headlines. The beauty of coin roll hunting as a hobby is that it's essentially a free treasure hunt with limited downside risk. You're investing face value for the coins, so the most you can lose is the time spent examining them, and if you don't find anything valuable, you simply return the coins to circulation and you're out nothing except that time. But if you do find something good, the potential upside is literally millions of dollars, making it one of the best risk-reward ratios of any treasure hunting activity you could possibly engage in. Beyond the pure financial motivation, there's something genuinely exciting and engaging about the process of searching through coins, the anticipation of each new roll you open, the careful examination of each piece, the learning that happens as you become more familiar with what normal coins look like and what errors and varieties exist, and the occasional thrill of discovery when you find something unusual even if it's not worth millions of dollars. All combine to create a hobby that's both potentially profitable and genuinely enjoyable for people who appreciate the blend of history, economics, art, and treasure hunting that numismatics represents. The story of the 2012 D-era nickel also serves as an important reminder about the ongoing nature of minting errors and the continuous opportunities for discovery that exist in modern coins. There's a misconception among some people that all the valuable coins have already been found, that modern mints are too sophisticated to produce significant errors, and that the era of numismatic discovery is over, but the 2012 D nickel along with the 1997 D and 2006 P errors we discussed earlier prove conclusively that none of those assumptions are true. Modern mints do produce errors, valuable coins are still being discovered, and the treasure hunt is very much alive and ongoing, which should be incredibly encouraging to anyone interested in coins or in the general concept of finding valuable things in unexpected places. Think about the incredible journey of those 2 known 2012 D-era nickels. They started their existence as manufacturing mistakes, anonymous errors among millions of normal coins, destined for circulation and everyday use, and through a combination of luck, knowledge, and persistence on the part of their discoverers, they were rescued from obscurity and recognized for the extraordinary numismatic treasures they truly are, transforming from 5-cent coins into million-dollar rarities that now reside in high-security vaults, protected and preserved for future generations to study and appreciate. Each of these coins represents a moment in time, a specific convergence of circumstances that created something that shouldn't exist according to plan but does exist in reality, and that makes them not just financially valuable but also culturally and historically significant as artifacts of our modern monetary system and the manufacturing processes that create the physical currency we use every day. As we reach the end of our journey through these 3 extraordinary modern nickels, I want you to take away several key lessons that apply not just to coin collecting but to life in general. First, always pay attention to the details, because valuable things often hide in plain sight waiting for someone observant enough to notice them. Second, knowledge is power, and education about what to look for can literally transform your financial situation if you apply that knowledge consistently. Third, persistence pays off, as demonstrated by David Martinez, who went through hundreds of thousands of coins before finding his million-dollar discovery. And fourth, never make assumptions about what something might be worth based solely on its apparent face value, because sometimes a 5-cent nickel is worth $1.70 million, and the only way to know the difference is to actually look. These 3 coins, the 1997 D worth $14 million, the 2006 P worth $9 million, and the 2012 D worth $1.70 million, collectively represent over $24 million in value, all from 5-cent pieces minted in our lifetime, and every single one of them was discovered by regular people, not professional dealers or wealthy collectors, but ordinary individuals who happened to be paying attention to their coins and knew what to look for when they saw something unusual. You could be next. You absolutely could be the person who discovers the next major error coin that makes headlines and changes lives, but only if you're educated, observant, and willing to actually look at the coins passing through your hands instead of treating them as invisible and interchangeable units of currency. Start checking your change today. Consider becoming a coin roll hunter if the hobby appeals to you. Learn about the various types of errors and varieties that exist on modern coins, and most importantly, never stop believing that extraordinary treasures can be found in the most ordinary places, because the evidence is overwhelming that this is absolutely true, and the next discovery could happen to you. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this entire exploration of these incredible modern nickels. Your attention and interest mean the world to me, and I hope the information I've shared will serve you well in your own numismatic adventures. Whether you're a serious collector, a casual treasure hunter, or simply someone who now looks at pocket change with a bit more appreciation and understanding of the potential value hiding in those seemingly ordinary coins. Remember, fortunes await those who know where to look and what to look for, and now you have that knowledge, so get out there and start searching, because your life-changing discovery could be waiting in your very next handful of change.